There are a few audiobooks that I have in my library from Audible that I revisit every couple of years, maybe some every couple of months, depending on how I'm feeling. But one of them that I definitely visit every couple of years is A Return to Love by Marianne Williamson. And it's one of those books that is pretty short, and it really just hit home in so many ways and helps me ground back into some beliefs and practices and energy that I like to carry forward in my life. And one of my favorite quotes, you may or may not know it, but I'll just read a little bit of it right now because I love it that much. And it is, "Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It's our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be?" The quote goes on a little bit, but because I know that you want to get to the episode, I will leave it there. It's definitely a book to check out on Audible. Audible is one of the sponsors for my podcast, and I couldn't be more excited about it because I use Audible, and I have used Audible for many, many years. So here's to building your little Audible library and having the books there that you can just pop on whenever you need to have a little reminder of who you really are and how incredible you really are, and how to allow yourself to just be that person. And hopefully you find some of those messages here on this podcast as well. So you can follow the link in my bio in the descriptions for Audible for a free 30-day free trial. And I don't think you'll ever look back from there. It's been a life-changing thing to have an Audible subscription for so many years, and I have an incredible library that I love and cherish. So I hope you find your books as well. And on to the episode.
I made this podcast basically, it was something that just kept like calling to me. I kept wanting to do a podcast. I kept stopping myself because I didn't really fit into a niche. I didn't really know exactly like what exactly I wanted to talk about. There's just a lot of things that I care about, and that I have like weird levels of knowledge in that I'd like to pass along. And so I kind of just said, like, screw it, I'm going to just do it anyways. It's not really a full niche. The niche really is that, in terms of the interviews, I like talking to people who live unconventional lives, people who have taken a different tack on life. And, you know, if you're multi-passionate, if you have just like a curiosity for life that I don't feel is reflected, as much as it maybe could be, I guess, in our culture, in a way that I think it's starting to be more reflected in our culture. At least I'm seeing it a bit more. And, you know, it's kind of like we have ADD, but also I think that the world is interesting and a lot of people find a lot of things interesting. So partly what I am aiming to do when I talk to people is be able to help pass along to somebody who like might be listening, maybe doesn't really know how to either like conceptualize what it is that's in their heart that they have been called to do, and maybe help them figure out like what the next steps are or how they can go about approaching that, or just kind of knowing that, yes, that exists. And there are plenty of successful people who do unconventional things, who didn't take like a regular, quote unquote, regular path.
Sure.
I think that, you know, there's a term that there's like this course that I did for a while it's called To Be Magnetic. And they do a lot of like shadow work and I did a lot of that last year, just kind of like going through my old stories and everything. And one thing I loved that they have in there is they call people expanders. So I like to think of these interviews as me introducing people to other expanders who are expanding your view of what's possible, right? Like, what's possible, you know. I think that is one of the greatest powers of us telling our stories. So
agreed.
Obviously, you and I are old friends.
Yep.
We haven't seen each other in a long time, but I mean, we've known each other for like 27 years.
Might be longer than 20 years.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It might be longer. I know.
Many lifetimes ago.
Yes.
But I remember when I was training in Krav, and Ernie would bring it. He'd be like, the speed and conditioning, and we all just died. But it was awesome. I loved it. I loved the training that you did. I thought it was really, really fun. And then recently just saw that you are starting with the Tsunami coaching. So, and that's kind of how we like connected from here. So, so I don't know. I mean, kind of just where to start. Is there anything that you want to start with? And then I have plenty of questions for you.
Everything you mentioned, I mean, that's culture is such an important piece of what of how I developed as a coach. And if you're talking about unconventional, I mean, I did not go to school for this. And that's not what I was geared towards. And then all of a sudden, and it's morphed and changed. And I've had some religious awakenings in the last couple of months. I've had some emotional reactions in the last couple of months, which I can get into with Karen and everything like that. And it's a very big piece of it. So, writing this book, that's an important thing that's happening. And it's 7 chapters in.
I'm so curious. I feel like I didn't actually ever hear like kind of how you got started in speed and conditioning.
Yeah. So my background was originally military history and international relations at Juniata College. That's what my degree was in. So I was going to be a Marine Corps lawyer. And you'll find this fascinating because of the connection that you have with Lyme. I got mononucleosis my senior year. But what I got was I had 2 weeks of really, really bad illness in 1989. But then I went back and played competitive sports in college for one more season, ran track, was fine. And then come September, I couldn't function anymore.
Mm-hmm,
And the manifestation I got was extreme fatigue and horrible, horrible mouth sores. So, I mean, they'd be dime sized, they'd be quarter sized in my mouth. And, they have to test you for everything because that's autoimmune. You never know what it is. So I was tested for everything. And they came up with, no, you have an Epstein-Barr reaction. Your body just attacks itself. So when people get mouth sores, and there's a common misconception, people will go like, ew, it's a cold sore. And you're like, it's not a cold sore. It's neither. It's literally your immune system over responding to your own tissue, and it attacks it. So I have scars all through my mouth. But I had to deal with that and by the way, even when we were doing all the stuff with Krav, I had that stuff going on, but people would never know it because you toughed it out. You didn't, you just did it.
Yeah. Yeah. You just showed up for training. You trained and you figured out a way to do it. Yeah.
And that's and then I got into personal training, and I was in the Nautilus world for many years, Greta, where literally this is what you would do. You'd stand in a gym and count like a robot. 1, 2, 3, good job. 4, 5, 6, like for an hour with a person. You just would count. I always say you could teach a baboon to do that and you wouldn't have to pay them. Just give them food and they'd be fine to go. But then I had a mentor, and this is really important, I think, for anybody that would be listening about mentorship. You're going to have many mentors, and then you're going to become a mentor as you go as well. So that's a big piece of this. I had a mentor who literally said to me, dude, you need to get out of this and work with athletes. Like, you have to. So I was, mid-20s, and all I knew from athletics was me. I was in multiple sports collegiately, and I took that chance, and I got out of it, and I started a company for speed and agility, and nobody was doing that. Like nobody. So this is mid to late 90s. I contacted the health and fitness director of the Philadelphia Inquirer, and I said, "You want to write a story about my company?" And he was like, "What's your company?" And I said, "It's to train athletes to be faster." And granted, there was like an audible pause. And he laughed at me and said, "You can't teach speed. Like, it's impossible." He goes, "If you want to talk about somebody running a better marathon, for endurance, then call me back." Well, I was pretty upset about that.
Yeah.
And about 2 months later, there's something that happened that had never happened before. The ESPN broadcast the NFL Combine for the first time ever. And it's a show now that people pay to go to it now, to go to the NFL Combine.
What is the Combine?
So that's where you take about 275 of the best college football players. They go to Indianapolis, and for 4 straight days, they test. Their 40-yard dash, their 5-10 5s, their vertical jumps, they're all the physical aspects. But what people don't understand also is they have an 8-hour medical exam as well that they have to go through to make sure that there's no injury, because they're literally thoroughbreds. And you're talking about millions of dollars being invested.
Right.
So, but when I started out, nobody did. You had one reporter from ESPN. Now it's a television show, basically.
Wow. I had no idea.
And I've been pretty blessed later in my career, which I can talk about. I've been there. So I've gone through that process. But right when that happened, Art Carey calls me. And I want you to picture, you're going to laugh. I'm driving around in a Chevy Blazer. It's a white Chevy Blazer, and this ties into the story. I have a cell phone that you have to flip the thing and pull the antenna up, and the charge lasts for about 5 seconds. And he says to me, "Hey, it's Art Carey. I want to write a story about your company. Meet me at Haverford College," which is a small liberal arts school outside of Philly, in 45 minutes, and I'll do a story on your company. So I hang it up, and I'm thinking to myself, I don't have a company. So I just made it up on the way to the interview.
That's awesome.
And I called it progressive speed training. And don't you know, he did that article. And from that time, I'll never forget this. I had 48 phone calls in 3 days on my home phone, which had, answering machine.
Right, right.
Yeah. So, and then what started to happen was I built this company and I was training by about 6 weeks in, I was down in Florida training professional tennis players. So I didn't really know a lot about what that was about, except for the training that I had. But here's the key for anybody in your audience. When I went down there, because we think professional athletes are invincible, and you've worked with very high level MMA fighters. Mm-hmm. When I got down there, a couple of the tennis players I played and worked with were saying they had all these anxieties, all these frustrations, all this depression. And I'm sitting there going, well, they really are just like us.
Right.
They're just like us. So it started this kind of this movement for me. Well, at the same time, as a parallel up in North Jersey, Bill Parisi was building Parisi Speed Schools. And he always tells the story of that he was driving around, this is kind of creepy, in a white van around North Jersey, like training kids. And I'm thinking, okay, that's a little strange, right? But he started to build, and by 2005, he started franchising. And I knew immediately when I met Bill, I said, you know what? The system he built is the best system I've ever seen to train kids. The hands down the best system. And 22 years later, it is the best system I've ever seen, and it's growing exponentially. The science is unreal now with the fascia training that we're doing, the neuromuscular training. But the bottom line is this: what attracted me most to it was the culture. And I've been a master coach with Parisi since 2014. So I go around the country certifying staffs to show these staffs that if you build culture and community, it's irrelevant what the kids' athletic success is. It's irrelevant.
Right.
Are you building culture? Are you building better leaders? And that's what I believe in. And so how I got involved in sports performance is in a very strange way. I'm serving my country. I didn't go in the Marine Corps, but I'm serving my country to make kids better. Mm-hmm. And if those kids, and this is the great thing about it, when they bring their kids to your program, you know you've done the right thing. Or Greta, I have a kid who's in Hawaii right now. He and his wife live in Hawaii. Calls me up and he says, "Hey, coach, I'm running the ultra marathons in Hawaii because I need some advice." And I've had this happen twice now. And I said, "Ryan, you can't call me coach. Just dude, you're like in your 40s now." And he goes, twice I've had this reaction. He goes, yeah, I just can't do that. I can't do that. So we've always said that popularity is temporary, but respect's timeless.
Yeah,
that's what coaching is about, and that's why it just solidifies why I love what I do, and that's how I got involved, and it's been ever since.
I mean, that's so exciting. I get I feel like my worldview and again, why I'm doing this, it's the same kind of thing where you're just, when you're taking care of your community, when you're cultivating community, when you're taking care of the people around you, there's so much that I think makes me at least feel powerless in our world when I'm watching news or seeing, those things. And I think it's good to be informed and to take action when you can. But so much of it is just being shown to us without any action. And for me, the only way I keep my sanity is by teaching the ladies jiu-jitsu and helping coach the other people in the class, and then doing this podcast and trying to just be a good person to the people in my community and help lift them up. Because that actually will translate directly into something being better. Hopefully, you're actually passing something along directly in that sense. And yeah, the amount of lives that you're touching, especially like you said, for the kiddos to be able to go through that and then have that kind of training. I mean, it is incredible what athletics. I typically, I did soccer up until right before martial arts. I was playing defense. I was checking everybody. So I was I think I should go do martial arts. I was I don't really care. I didn't really I was you guys can score goals. I'll take care of this back here. But having that community and having that leadership, like you said, it makes such a tremendous difference in the way that people live their lives, I think, truly. And I'm sure you see that tremendously, I'm sure.
It's every day, and it's funny. I do a lot of speaking across the country, and so I've been pretty blessed to do speaking not just for Parisi, but also a program called Training for Warriors I was involved with, and now that's the big. So a good friend of mine, Martin Rooney, started that. So he actually still corners some guys in the MMA. So he's been through that process too, but. It's all about culture and then telling stories. So that's what I specialize in. It's really funny. I did a whole thing on storytelling and the tapestry of storytelling. And that if you look at different cultures all over the world, and there's one unifying principle, and that is every story is built around how do they make the youth of their society better than the previous generation. And I don't care what it is. I saw Choctaw Native Americans, Alaska, Inuits. I've seen African tribes, everything into Asia, United States, wherever we are. That's the unifying force, is that the storytelling is passed down to make the next generation better. And that's where I think real true coaches, they're the real true coaches in sport. That's what they're trying to do. I mean, not every coach is great. We know that. We both experienced that, I'm sure. But if we can be that lighthouse, that beacon for these kids, and as I call it now, when you create these citadels to protect them against, when we talk eventually about the tsunami effect, like you can protect yourself, and those citadels will help them understand what those ripples are in their lives. Mm-hmm. And that's, to me, we are literally here to serve the kids of our communities. And if we can do that, and by the way, you know what ends up happening? You serve their parents. Like that's what happens. And they're desperate. It's exactly what you said. It's great. So I was very politically active before January 13th. I haven't watched any news. Mm-hmm. I have not participated in any negative podcast, because what I found was I was angry all the time. Mm-hmm. And here I was leading up to my 57th year, and I was furious all the time. And I thought, you know what? I'm done. Now that doesn't mean I'm not aware of what's going on, but I refuse to allow myself to be trapped by those things anymore, because it's not positive. It's not beneficial any longer. And that's
it's not like, again, like if you can take action, and really that, I think that most of that for most people is like call a representative and send an email kind of thing. Right. It's hard to know like how much more I don't know how much more to be involved in that sense. Besides like, it's tough after COVID. Like I think before COVID, I didn't watch much anything. And then COVID happened and I was like, wait, what's happening? And I was like, oh,
I think we all were.
We all were. Yeah. And then they got us like hooked into watching things all the time. But yeah, I always go back again, like you said, like to the culture and the community. And, it's like shining your light on the corner of the world that you can. And that corner you may have many corners, many areas where you're able to do that. But that's really where our power lies. That's where our power lies. So, and it's not like if you do that, you're not, aware of what's going on or involved or whatever, but hopefully, and we've met lots of people in different walks of life, right? I've known a lot of people who, even if it takes a couple years, they may come back and be like, oh, I thought about that differently. And now I do these things differently. And what are they doing? They could be having a massive influence somewhere else in the world. And that's how we share and we spread those ideas. Like I'm a very firm believer of that. And like you said, with the kiddos, I mean, I think it's amazing. It's funny. I have a women's class, but I'm not like, teaching the kids martial arts was like really hard for me. I don't know if it's because I'm so short, and like I like hanging out with them. Like I can I just talk to them like they're people, and I don't have children either. So I'm just like, what's up? But like teaching them Krav, when I taught them Krav back in the day, was really confusing to me because I didn't know how to teach them something that was self-defense when they're so little that I was like, I'm already so little. I was like, I have to work really hard to make myself believe that I can do X, Y, or Z. I'm like, you're 9. I don't know what to do with you, and it was about the mindset kind of things. But now I have a few littles who either come with their moms, because I have a lot of moms, and they come and we do women's class and they are like part of it. And it's jiu-jitsu is a different vibe than Krav. But it's just been so fun, like to see. I have one in particular. She comes on her own, and she just really loves being with all the other women, loves to like play basically and train a little bit. But I know I can just see that it's making that impact on her and just the school in general, right? Like she goes to all the classes and she trains like the kids classes, and then she likes coming to the women's classes. It's just been really cool to see that. It's been the way that I've been able to hang out with the littles and help pass that along in a way that's like a little unofficial for me, because we'll have teenagers and the adults, and I know how to speak to them a lot better in terms of like violent activities. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Yes. I thought that's what you were getting at with Krav when you were talking about the violence of it.
So we're going to punch these people in the throat. You're like, what? I was like, okay, you know, but yeah, they do really well. I had a question about, when you got the call, like I'll say for me, I have always struggled with having the confidence, whether or not it seems like I do. I think outwardly sometimes people are like, oh, because I do a lot of things. I just kind of force myself to do it, and trust that in the past when I've done that, it's worked out. I like surprise myself. I'm like, oh, I did it, you know. I'm curious, when you got that call from Art and you were like making up your business, and then all of a sudden 6 weeks later you're like doing it. How did you manage? Did you have things come up that you were like the imposter syndrome kind of things, or how did you manage that internally? Like, what was your process, if you remember?
Yeah. So, and I think the imposter syndrome happens continuously. So no matter how talented we are, we do have that imposter syndrome, because listen, I mean, we've got human failings, we've got weaknesses, we've got insecurities, we've got, you know, all the other things that crop up. I think it's that when you start to realize that you're dealing with people very similar to yourself, and that they're looking to you for some level of confidence and authority for them. So when other people entrust their confidence in you, I do believe that bolsters your initial confidence. If you ask about imposter syndrome, Greta, I had it today. So today I'm sitting there. I just, you know, I finished chapter 7 of the book. The book, it came back to me electronically, and I read it, and I was like, first of all, this is really happening, but who's going to read this? You know, but as you start to like process that, I really think that confidence is built on belief and faith. And I'm very passionate about that. And then today I did a post all about, you know, intention. Like, what is the intention? Why are you doing it? If it's, are you actually having intention with purpose? And when you can do that, now, when I was younger, it may have just been that, you know, I hate this term fake it till you make it. I don't like that, because I think you're not faking it. Mm-hmm. What you're doing is you have a level of authority even when you first start. So yeah, when I was down there with the tennis players, what got me really to see was they weren't invincible superheroes. Mm-hmm. They were literally going through the same process I went through in college, albeit Division III sports, where I sat back and there were times where I said, I'm not good enough to do this. I'm not fast enough. I'm not strong enough. I'm not this. And you hear top 10 tennis player in the world say that, and you're thinking to yourself, you have got to be kidding me. You hear an NFL combine guy who's like, I don't know if I can do this. And you're going, what are you talking about? Like, we don't process that well. So I think my process now is, imposter syndrome is fleeting now, because there is a sincere belief and a sincere confidence in right now what I can do. Back then, it may have been more kind of, I'm still a little bit nervous about what I'm doing, but I know enough that as long as I'm confident in my ability to at least, you know, teach a wall drive, teach a quick step drill, things like that, then it's okay. Where you would run into trouble is if you just feel lesser than the people you're around. And we've all gone through that. So my process has always been now to pause and reflect, take a breath, pause and reflect all the time now. And I want to be really honest with you. It was a diametric change happened to me January 13th of this year, which I can certainly get into and talk to you about. I had Karen and I broke up, and we're slowly rebuilding our relationship right now. And I don't care how slow it is, doesn't matter, because she's worth it. But what it did was it really jump-started my confidence. It jump-started my ability, because she was the one always saying, you're really great at this. You're really great at this. I wouldn't listen. I didn't hear it. And then after that, I heard it and really had started to address it. So that was a big deal. And I had a religious kind of awakening February 15th. And for me, that was a big impactful moment when I was able to kind of embrace faith. And that was important, Greta, for me. Not everybody does, and that's fine. Like everybody has their different style or whatever they believe in. But for me, it was that. And I literally built a new company 24 hours later. So you're talking about the Tsunami Effect. I built that 24 hours later on February 16th, and it is exploding for me. Why? Because I believe in it. I believe in it. And I believe in the confidence to help other people in that mission. So in a roundabout way, I think I answered that question.
Yes, beautiful. Yeah. I love that so much. I think, you're saying the belief thing is so important. I definitely am having my own new relationship with the whole belief recently too. I, very much loved all of the law of attraction things, whatever, back in the day when it first came out, right? My sister and I would watch all the things and we're like, oh my God. And I'm going to use my imagination. I'm going to whatever. And it did, it took me many places. It took me down many paths, but until I really, the shadow work stuff that I was talking about when I lost my business last year. And I knew at that time that my business was my side hustle that basically became my source of income, just enough to kind of keep things going. It got us here to Colorado. But it also took up so much time and energy that I couldn't do the thing I really wanted to do, which was music. So I knew when it was fading and it was dying that I was this is my moment. If I don't do this right now, if I don't go all in on music and really believe in myself, then play music and enjoy it, but don't expect anything to happen unless you're going to do it, So that right there. But then I also knew that I was building, and I had been building so much of my past and all the stories from the past, as we all do, right? Until we have some kind of awakening, right? Until we have some kind of, and usually I know I've had some, revelations. And that's why, like you said, the pause and reflect, I think is so important because I actually, back when I wanted to do this podcast before, I was going to call it Sit With It, because that was my practice, was to just sit with it. Anytime things came up and I would have a knee-jerk reaction to react. And I got into a different practice of go on a walk or just let it sit for a little bit, don't do anything yet. Let things settle a little bit and then kind of see what comes up. And then I can make better decisions about things. And just have just a better life. Honestly, it's a life practice that I definitely very much go with. But back to the belief portion of it was, going through lots of just shadow work. So just really investigating why I believe certain things. I kept having a feeling that if I did get the phone call that I'm waiting for, or the job that I, the let's say the movie trailer, right? You got it, whatever. What was my initial reaction was that the imposter syndrome, or I'm going to lose it. I would have those kinds of things come up, right? I got it, but now I'm going to lose it. So I had to really go through and investigate all of those things. Why did I think that way? What did I see growing up that made me think that was the path, and can I look at it differently? Can I shift my perspective, which is why this is a thought experiment called life. Because it's how do I look at this a little differently so that I don't repeat that, and so that I can actually stay on top of these things. And the recently I came across some old timey sort of law of attraction-y talk things, whatever. And they were talking about imagination and belief. And it just hit me in a new way because I've done all that work, I can use my imagination and I can actually believe in myself, because I don't have that thing coming up being yeah, but I really talked to that. Yeah, but for a year, I was all right, we're going to just hang out. Tell me everything. Let me figure out what's a valid concern and what is just something that came up and you never fully processed it out. You never really had that full conversation with yourself, with that. So I think, and like you said, with spirituality, it's whether it's religion, whatever. I think we don't know. I said this in my last episode, we don't know what's going on. We don't know where we are. This is a crazy, wild experience. And there is something very magical and profound. And however we show up with that is up to us. That's our personal relationship. That's so important, I think. So I love that.
Well, I think it's such a high level of respect. Not just for yourself, but for other people. And I think that one of the main problems that and you brought it up, listen, having had a teenager who went through COVID. So my son went through all that. And then, you begin to question a lot. There were a lot of questions, and there was a lot of questions about self-worth and everything like that. And so I think it's gotten far worse since then, although I think it's improving. And I see what's happening now is this huge personal development movement is, I think, an important piece of this. But it's not just, us watching like our other people's podcasts and doing all these different things. It's us investing time and energy into our own development and our own growth. And the sooner we do that, the better. And I'll say this, Greta, and that, it's very difficult in our 20s and into our 30s to do that. It is very difficult because there's so much external static going on around us all the time. And I don't think that we're mature enough to handle it all the time. I know in my 20s, I wasn't.
I was not, no.
There's no way, it's like,
I thought I was.
Yeah, but I think we all think we are.
Yeah, I was like, I got this. And I was like, no.
Yeah. And that's the cool thing about whatever iteration of business you want to develop, whatever new thing you want to do, it's never too late as long as the message is correct. And again, I keep going back to this, how you serving other people. Now you got to serve yourself. I mean, you got to do that because there are people that will serve others and then they will not, they're falling apart as they do it because they don't serve themselves. So I really believe that for me, the top three things, and people may not disagree with, may not agree with this order. I think it's health, relationships, and then career. Career is a distant third. And it really is. Because if you're not healthy, you're in big trouble. And if you're not healthy, your relationships fall apart. If you don't pay attention to relationships, everything falls apart. And careers last. And it's unfortunate that a lot of people, it's the other way around. They go career, then they go, and then in a distant second and third are relationships and health, which it blows me away. And two people, like, you get it. When you have a health crisis that's chronic, you know exactly what I'm talking about and how it does affect relationships so greatly. So, that's where I think our society is. But I do think there's a reset. I do think people are rebuilding kind of their foundations, which is so important.
It's so important. You're right. I do think there's definitely a wave of people who are like, okay, we had a reset of some sort, right? And that's where the whole mindset part of it comes together. And I think that's, it's tough. Like, you went through autoimmune things. I also was diagnosed with mono when I was diagnosed with Lyme. If they were like, here's a bunch of things, I was like, okay, I don't know what all this is.
Right.
But the gift of that, because people are always like, oh, I'm sorry. I talk about it a lot. Not so people say like, oh, I'm sorry. I talk about it, because when I hear people talk about it who have a similar story, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm not crazy. Like, that is what their shared experience. But the other side of it is it really did teach me so much. It really, like, I prioritize my health so high. And Matt, my fiance, is type 1 diabetic. And that was kind of how we became even friends and bonded in the first place is, he understood the level of maintenance and the level of awareness that you have to have when you have something that's autoimmune. And he got it when he was 25, and I got Lyme when I was about 20, and it changed everything. So now me at 42, I'm like, so much healthier and so much more engaged and have my priorities straight when it comes to that, right?
Yeah.
Because you really can't, if you know that delicate balance and the storm that can happen when you neglect that, it is you don't even have awareness to process anything else. Like you were saying, it's so incredible. Yeah. And I think, I wonder from your perspective, as somebody who teaches high level athletes, like, and I also, I've always been like super interested in health and physical activity. The people who don't necessarily find it that interesting or think that it has to be high level in order for it to be effective. I wonder what you would share with them.
Well, I think, to be honest with you, most of our client base are not high-level athletes. Mm-hmm. So we always tell parents this, like, it's a fact, 7% of the high school population goes on to play college. That's it. And of that 7%, it's about, I think it's 1.1% is Division I. And of that percent, 0.07% go on to play professional sports. But every parent thinks their kid's going to play at a high level. And that's just it's not a fact. So the idea is this, and how you address it is, number one, more than anything else, you are teaching self-confidence and belief. I don't care what you're teaching. Now, we've been pretty blessed. I've worked with a lot of high-level kids that are currently like Division I scholarship winner kids in the NFL, kids in Major League Baseball, things like that. But they didn't start out that way. So you've got kids. I have a family that went to Unionville High School. Their daughter's arguably was one of the greatest field hockey players in American history, and their son is a Major League Baseball pitcher.
Wow.
So, and
that's so
quite
cool.
a family. And actually, she was featured on ESPN recently. She's the first athlete to win a national championship as a coach, and the year before she won it as a player.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And she's a Unionville graduate, and her brother, and we trained them. So, but here's what it is: when you approach the parents, and you know what, Greta, that's where I was saying the grand reset, I think, happened. If you ask now, most parents of 7 to 14-year-olds are coming in and going, I just want my kid to feel good. I just want my kid to be confident. I just want them to believe in themselves. Yeah, I want them to be faster. Like, I want that, but I want them to I want them to have fun. Like, I'm actually hearing that more now than I've ever heard before. So the pressure, even though there are parents that are obviously, we call them now, it's not just helicopter, but there are bulldozer parents or snowplow parents that just mow everybody over to get their kids somewhere. But I think when you approach it, you're approaching it from that perspective of helping kids believe in themselves and create self-confidence. And by the way, when I had the training for Warriors, that's all adult training. So we trained, the hurricane training was like, you're training them like MMA fighters. They sprint, you do 2 exercises, and it would be category 1 to 5 in hurricanes. And we would do story time with the parents, with the adults, and they would be upset if you didn't do it, because they want to feel that. They want to feel what that belief means. When you have people coming to you and going, hey, I got off my antidepressants because of this. I got off high blood pressure medication because of this. And it makes you cry. Like I've had sessions where you're doing strategy sessions with adults and they're like, I can't believe what this has done for me. And the reality is you've set them up for success by believing in them. So for me, it's everybody has to, I think it's part of the human construct. Like, we need others to believe in us so that we can believe in ourselves. But there's the key. You better believe in yourself.
Right.
As well.
Right.
So that's the transition, is that you've got people that believe in themselves, and you're a better parent. You're a better sibling. You're a better spouse, whatever that might be. So the majority of the population is not elite. I can tell you that right now.
Right. Right.
Right. They might think they are.
Right. Well, that's good. They're believing in themselves, right?
Yes.
I believe. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Maybe they're like the elite version of themselves.
But I love that. That is absolutely a perfect way to put it. They are an elite level of themselves. They are better now than, what's the old saying? So you know this, but dojo literally means the path, or the path of the way. Mm-hmm. It's not a place that you fight. It literally, in Japanese, the do is the path, the jo is the way. They are finding their way. Yeah. And if you're a fighter, you're going to find your way like that. But everything we do is a dojo. Your office is a dojo because it's your path. It's your way. Your history with your illness is your path. You wouldn't be the person you are if you hadn't. It's terrible to say, like, we both know this, but you'd be different probably.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Yeah. Especially, definitely, as you are at, to the 20-somethings, I'll be like, when you're here on Earth longer, that's how I say it. I'm like,
it's scary that you're saying that now, right?
When you've spent some time, many rotations of the sun. You just kind of, if you choose to look at it that way, which is, again, a lot of what I talk about, is a lot of just inviting people to look at things a little differently and be like, okay, I am who I am because of all of this, whatever happened. But truly, if you have gratitude towards the part, just like being in school, and we could, not the education system that maybe should be honored in that way, but having, something that you wanted to learn. There are many times where it just sucks, right? But it's also part of it. And if you just kind of don't take it personally in that sense, that's what I had to do, is really change kind of how I thought about it, in the sense where I'm like, I'm not going to make it more dramatic than it needs to be. It is what it is, the highs and lows, just to sort of zen about it. It makes it a lot easier. And then you really can go like, oh, when shit happens, you really do start to look at things differently. I'll say I really start to look at things differently and go like, where are the areas that I'm learning from and building from? I saw this quote, I think I posted it a few weeks ago, and it was something to the effect of, if people are watching your life is a movie right now, the audience, like, what are they screaming to you right now? Like, what are, they're like, you need to do whatever. And sort of having that bird's eye perspective to go, all right, what is it that I'm getting out of like learning from the situation? Or maybe I'm just enjoying the situation too, right? Maybe the good times we can just like soak that up as well,
Absolutely. There's no reason why you shouldn't.
Yeah. So tell me about how everything got started with Tsunami Effect.
Well, yeah, like I said, it started back in January. It was the catalyst. And I said that, so the book's dedicated to Karen because she was literally the catalyst that got me rolling on this. Had I not, I'll tell you what, it's so funny. Everything ties in together. Before that happened, I wouldn't have recognized anything, right? I would have just continued on the same path, miserable, which I was, miserable and unhappy, even though at the highest level, because that's why I always say high performers can hide things really well from people to a certain extent, and then you can't. And I'm not the type that I don't drink, I don't do drugs. So for me, it was always like, it would be more about just my personality would shift and change. And she used to say to me, and I've been using this a lot lately. It's not, I didn't invent this, but you're either a thermometer or a thermostat. So she would say, Eric, when you walk into a room, she goes, the entire temperature of the room changes depending on your mood. She goes, you can light people up or you can bring them straight down with your mood. And she said, so what I always say now is a thermometer measures the temperature. The thermostat changes it and dictates what's going on in the room you're in. If you're a thermostat person and of high energy, I would imagine that you are, because you always were when you were in Krav and everything like that. That's a thermostat person. So if you lose belief, the people around you start to lose belief. And because you're, and I said, I told her, I said, I don't believe I have that kind of power over people. I think that's silly, like that you could say that. But after we had our kind of our breakdown, that's what I call it, our breakdown, she was right. She was right the whole time, with everything. So that kind of got me going. And within 48 hours of that, I wrote a 5-page letter addressing every single point that she made. We didn't talk for 30 days. 30 days, February 13th, we talked. And here's what she said. And she knows, because this is in the book too. She called and I hadn't talked to her and I was dying to talk to her. And they said, before you say a word, we're done. I just want to tell you our relationship's over. And I went, nope, I don't believe that. I said, so let me read this letter. And I'm not, well, I am now, but I never used to be really emotional. I was really emotional. It was very difficult to get through the letter, but I addressed everything. And she said at the end, she goes, this is not the conversation I thought we were going to have.
Right.
I didn't think this was the way it was going to go, because previously I said, what do you think I was going to do? She said, either beg me or just blow me off and be like, oh, well, who cares? And I didn't. And so we've been slowly rebuilding. And like I told you, I don't care. The amount of time it takes, because it really truly is love's patient. And every flower I send her, it's worth it. Everything I have for her, it's worth it, no matter what. And here's the cool thing, that if it doesn't work, that's okay too. That's okay. Like, it's okay. Like that, there's a reason why. It's going to, though. I know it. But I'm confident, like I really am. And so, but then what happened was I started journaling. So I journal every single day, morning and night. I get up at 4:30 a.m. because on February 15th, I had this religious epiphany and I woke up at 4:30 a.m. And that's what started this. Right? I really took Jesus into my heart and I did that. So I was vacant for almost 57 years before that. So I did that. And so that's what I've been doing. And health-wise, so I was 199 pounds on a 5'9" frame in January. I changed everything. I'm at 183 and I box 3 days a week. I train, and it's the same thing you said. I just made a decision. I eat differently, and it's just, I feel better about that aspect of things too. Again, that same thing, high performing athletes, we get it. And all of a sudden when you see an anomaly in your routine, you change it. And what it does is it changes you physically, mentally. And so the tsunami effect kind of got rolling from that. So what the tsunami effect is, so it is for the ability for people to see the ripples before they become tsunamis. Because a tsunami starts off as nothing more than a displacement of water. there's a couple different scenarios, but I use an underwater earthquake that causes these ripples that fan out in every direction, but they're tiny. They're 6 to 12 inches high. You can't perceive them in the open ocean. But when they get towards the shoreline and the shore, it's shallower, it rears up. And it's not a breaking wave. It's just a mass of boiling water. I call it's fear, it's anxiety, frustration, and then depression. And if you don't see them, they're going to form this wave train. One's going to hit. It's going to cause tremendous damage to your shoreline, which is your conscious and subconscious mind. It's going to withdraw and then come back again. Mm-hmm. And it's going to have all that debris, the mental debris. And so I wanted to help people create, I call them the citadels, so that you can see the ripples coming. Or if what happened to me was a tsunami hit pretty dramatically, mm-hmm. and I was able to withstand that, while a year ago, no, let's scratch that. 4 months ago, I wouldn't have been able to. So I recognized that. I made some decisions. There's that story, Greta. There's a great story about 3 frogs on a branch over a raging river. And you tell people, one decides to jump in. How many are sitting on the branch? And kids and adults all goes, well, there's 2 because one's in the water. I'm like, let me say it again. There are 3 frogs on a branch over a raging river. One decides to jump in. How many are on the branch? Mm-hmm. And the answer is there's 3. So you can decide all you want, mm-hmm. but if you don't take action, you're not going anywhere. So right. For me, it was all about that. I had made a decision that I wasn't going to, number one, allow my relationship to collapse. I refused to do that. And I also wanted to make a change in my career to reach more people with that message. Mm-hmm. You need to take action on what you're doing so that you recognize what's happening in your life before mm-hmm. depression hits. So do you remember the boxer tsunami of 2004? That was the big tsunami in Indonesia mm-hmm. that killed 250,000 people. Actually, they think it was significantly more that died. There's a scene where there's people up on the top of a hotel and they're watching a guy who's just standing on the beach as you see this, it's probably a 60-foot wave coming at him, and he's paralyzed. First of all, he's not going anywhere. He's dead. And they clearly never found him again, probably. But that's the last phase is you're stunned into depression. You do nothing. You just stand there and you look at this thing coming at you and going, well, I can't do anything about it, so I might as well just stand here. And that's what I use as an analogy behind it. But it got me started. I said, I'm writing a book. So I hired a company. I'm writing a book. I made this change. I built an online coaching course. I'm writing the course. And here's the cool thing about it. So this is where you hear this. So I was talking to an investor, and he says to me, he goes, so what do you need? What do you need for this? And I said, I gave him the number, and he says, that's terrific. That's great. It's going to be a hit. I'm going to help you out. I would never have asked him previously. And he said, why did you wait so long to ask me? He's a multimillionaire. Mm-hmm. Why did you wait for so long to ask me? He goes, I wouldn't give you the money. Because I said, I wasn't ready to start this business. Mm. And now this is how things happen when you open yourself up. I'm going to be CEOing basically the health recovery of a billionaire in the Philly area. So I'm hiring trainers and everything like that. You know what he told me when he said, what do you want? Like, what money wise, what do you want? And I told him, and he's like, well, I'm going to give you a lot more than that. And he said, here's why. Extraordinary people need to be paid extraordinarily. And I thought, wow, but I wouldn't have done that. And this is the thing. Karen is the absolute catalyst. God's a part. Obviously, he was speaking through her, but she's the catalyst. And I saw, okay, no, I'm not going to allow this to fall apart because of my own insecurities and my own depression and anxiety, frustration, and fear. I was afraid. Mm-hmm, I was walking in fear, Greta. As someone who's been coaching professional athletes for a better part of 25, 30 years, and I'm afraid. And that's okay.
Do you think that it was something that was building up, or do you feel like it started to, because we go, I love that you're using nature to relate all of this. That's just how I look at the world and everything. I'm like, it's just like this. So I love that. And I feel like in our life, yeah, like we have cycles and seasons. I know for me, I have to, I stay present, and then, you forget, and then you're like, oh, right, I'm doing X, Y, or Z that I'm being mean to myself. I'm doing all of these negative habits that I work really hard to like not do. And sometimes they just kind of creep in.
Sure.
Sometimes I'll wake up, and I've had depression, anxiety all my life. Sometimes I'll just wake up and there's just like this voice that's like, "Meh," and I know it now, like I'm friends with it enough to be like, what, is this your day? And I just make sure I'm like, I'm not gonna give this voice any agency in my life today, but it's just one of those days. I'm just gonna kind of let I'll see how I feel tomorrow. And usually it's like it's been cloudy for 2 days. I'm very, very like me and the sun need to be together all the time.
I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you.
But yeah, did you, like, looking back now, did you feel like, were there cycles that were coming through that you hadn't acknowledged to go, wait, I'm living in fear and anger right now? Or was it something that kind of one big kind of wave was happening?
No, I think so. If you really track it back, and it's a lot in the book about my father. So my dad died when I was 18. My dad was an alcoholic and smoked a ton of cigarettes every day. It was a high stress job. But what killed my dad was so afraid of everything. Mm-hmm. My dad was afraid to advance his career. My dad was afraid to go to the doctor. He was afraid to quit drinking. He was afraid to do so. I think it started then when I was young. And then what would happen was you mask it with talent. So if you're being told all the time, you're a great coach, you're a great coach, you're a great coach. And then all of a sudden you're thinking, well, I am a great coach, but I'm a fraud because I'm not making enough money. I'm doing all these different things. So I think it was a crescendo. I think what started to happen was because, when I was married to Cole's mom, she couldn't motivate me. It wasn't her fault. She had her own demons that she had to deal with. But what Karen did was was saying to me, I want to live this life with you. I want to do these things with you. And when you're not doing well financially, that preys on your kind of your confidence and everything like that, especially the construct. I always say this. But think of the way that men are treated in this society. Like you're supposed to be the protector, the one who makes the money, that does all this. And that's not always necessarily true, but there is a piece of that through our evolutionary history that's the way things are. But what I started to see was this, Greta. If you asked me back when I was 23 what I wanted to do, I would tell you, I want to train professional athletes. That's what I wanted to do. Now, in the industry back then, yeah, you could make some money doing that, but it was not sustainable. But if you ask me now what I want to do, I want to build a company that is financially stable, secure enough that I can then go out and do charity work. Mm-hmm. So there's the difference. So if you ask me, like, listen, God wants you to make money. He does. Mm-hmm. It doesn't make you necessarily happy, but it will facilitate your ability to be happier if you're balanced and happy. Because I want to serve other people. I want to raise money for charity. I've been doing that, but now I want the outlet to do it more. And by the way, too, I want my son to have a great legacy. I want him to be able to say to his friends when I'm gone, my dad was just a great dad who just loved helping people. The money won't matter. Right. But what's starting to happen is that when you manifest that, yeah, the money's there. And by the way, yeah, I want to be able to buy vacation homes with Karen. I want to travel with her. Those are the things that you envision to do. And if you build a company that can do that, but then also at the same time, you serve others. And I mean it because we say the cliche a lot of times, like, well, I want to just serve more people. It's like, well, how? My big thing is charity work, and you've got to be able to be in front of people, and you have to have the financial resources to do that. I believe that.
I agree completely. Yeah, I mean, similar situation in that sense, right? Like, yeah, I've been doing this because I want to do this, and financially, it's been very tough the past however long. But I believe, as much as like it's been a long time, it's hard for me to believe those things sometimes. Like to feel it. I do a lot of like. This is where the imagination piece comes in, really just, I've seen enough things shift in my life that I never thought would have shifted. So I know that there are other things that can shift, even if I have a hard time thinking it right now. Then that's for me, my like spiritual path is very much like, I know that I don't know maybe how to do, or I don't know how to do X, Y, or Z, but I do know what's in my heart. And I do know to follow the things that are placed there, trusting that like openness will lead down that path. But the reason I was asking were some of the reasons in terms of the confidence portion of it is, and especially with men and women, it is different in that sense. Like And I think I've spent more time around dudes than anybody because than ladies in general. It's more balanced now in my life, but I grew up in martial arts gyms and now there's ladies everywhere, which is great.
Awesome.
But yeah, it's awesome. But yeah, so I've always noticed and been envious of kind of just the different shift of like this, there's a level of confidence that most men that I've been around at least have that just kind of inherently comes that I have to like force myself to do. And it feels weird. I feel like I'm putting on like an outfit that doesn't fit sometimes, because when I've expressed it the way I thought I was supposed to express it, I was, either like a bitch or like too much, there's all these other, like, it doesn't quite your energy, so it's kind of fitting those things together. And that's sort of just like a gender role kind of thing, but it's interesting.
But I'll tell you this,
for
you, Greta, like anybody that would ever say those kinds of statements, they're not secure in who, especially a man, is not secure in who they are. So like to say a woman is a bitch, it's because the guy's so insecure about where they are. So that's false bravado in the first place. That's the key. And it's like, I'm around very strong. I always say that I'm always around both alpha males and alpha females. Mm-hmm. So like whenever we have a summit for a sports performance or when we had it for training for wars, you're talking alphas, both male and female. So there's that's like, and everybody was in the same, but here's what it is. Alphas can also doubt themselves. Mm-hmm. And so, I really believe that if, when you start to develop that belief and confidence, nothing's going to stop you. But I would tell you, for me, like my confidence changed in 4 months ago. That's it's a totally different feel. It's real because I write about it all the time now. So I recognize where it is. And we all have our moments. There's times I'm like, sure, you suck. It's like, but then you pause, you say it, you sit with it. I love that. And you reflect on it. And then, which would be a good book title, by the way.
It's one of my songs, actually.
That's cool. I love that.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just really, I mean, again, like when you reached out, I was like, it's so perfectly aligned. Like I love obviously talking about these things because I think that, I feel very fortunate that my parents were they so encouraged my sister and I to like dream big and believe big dreams. And this is not like shade on them. They didn't, but parents do the best they can, right? They didn't quite show us like how to do those things. Right. So that's the part that which is fine. I'm taking that on my own. But the fact that they really like gave us permission to dream and to wonder and to have like, fantastical visions of what we could imagine is something that, I feel like that's how I don't have kids. Everyone is kind of my kid in a way. I'm like the big sister auntie vibe where I like to pass that along, whether I'm teaching or a friend of mine or whatever, we happen to be in a conversation. Like the constructs that we're given often lead us into the place where that wave is coming and you're not paying attention because we're told to go like, it's fine. Everything is fine. Meanwhile, there's the water is rising, like you're saying, you don't even see it. And it crashes and hits you. And it's a very human experience. And I think that what I even love more about your message is that it's not like I think a lot of people will find it when the tsunami already did hit them. They didn't see it coming and it got them. And that also, there's that sacred, it's sacred. That's a sacred, what you went through is sacred. It brought you here. You wouldn't have any of that. And I know you see that. Like, and it's this destruction rebirth cycle that is just inherent in our humanity and in our Mother Earth. And, to be able to share that message with people if they are going through something that feels like their world is ending, that was why I left my old relationship. I knew that if I went through one more cycle of what was happening, that I wasn't going to be here anymore. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was at that place and it was weird because when I made the decision to leave, things were actually pretty peaceful. But I saw the cycle starting again. And I was like, if I don't do this now while I can, like while I'm having this like very strong pull, then that's all she wrote, So yeah. Yeah.
It's a scary thought. But then again, like you look at it, look where you are now.
Yeah.
And you say to yourself, like, wow, I went through that tsunami. I went through that. I got through it. And I always say that's when you create that, I love the word citadel because it's a protective fortress that is built, that you build. And the citadels in history were always, if they were in an empire, they were the last to fall, right? And they usually fell because of human error. Not because of the fortifications, because the human error caused the failure. And that's the interesting piece of the citadel. It's like, well, if you're creating your own, how do you protect your conscious and subconscious mind? And I'm a big believer in that now.
Yeah.
Before, I wouldn't have thought about it. I just was going I was going with the flow of it. And I identified myself as a performance coach. I wouldn't even identify myself as an owner of these companies. I always felt lesser. And it's just so interesting how that shifts. And now it's, it's not the same anymore.
That's so, I mean, this is what I love about the human experience is these moments. And granted, it's incredibly painful, going through these things. But, and this is again, why I really advocate any kind of physical training, like martial arts or just athletic training, because you understand how to ride, you understand how to sit with things for sure. Cause you can ride it out. You've tested your boundaries in very many ways. And if you can apply that philosophically to your life, then you can, find your way and weather those storms and gain new skills and new perspectives. And again, that's that spirituality context too, where it's like the surrender of like, I don't know what the fuck is going on, but I'm open to knowing something different, and welcoming that in is, I don't know. Those are the things, I think that's what I love. Like if I were to watch a movie or something, like those kind of human experiences are the ones that I think really just add richness to our life, even if during the time you're like, I fucking hate this. I don't want to go through this,
But it does do exactly what you said. It does add richness to your life if you recognize that and you see that that's a part of this process, and you kind of surrender to that, and you give it has its power at some point. But then, like you said, I like what you said about your morning when you're like, okay, so this is anxiety. Just want to tell you, you got about an hour and then you're done. Like you're allowing it to happen, where most people don't do that. They're not in conscious thought about where they are, and they don't think about where they are.
Yeah, I mean, it's taken a lot of practice for sure. I definitely, started reading and learning things, at least, I mean, back when you and I, like when we trained back in the day, so over 20 or so years ago, like I definitely got into all of that at that time, but didn't really, it was very much about like, I want to create this life that I want or whatever, it's different now for me, and doing therapy and all those things. And honestly, learning, I mean, one of the episodes that I did recently was just kind of like, when I was really sick and I was in this relationship and everything, I just didn't have control over anything, my health, where my life was going. I didn't know. I mean, I could have done something, but I didn't know that I could, and I didn't know how to. And I had a physical therapist, and then I heard somebody else say it on like I think it was a podcast I was listening to, some like spiritual teacher. And then I heard it again in a reference to Viktor Frankl's work. So like those three things came together, where basically the message was, if nothing changes, how do you find your peace there? How do you find your life there? And so to the credit of it at the time, this is probably, it was at least 8 years before I really like changed things. But at the time, it helped me learn how to create a world of my own, in a way, to really understand these things, to really find tools and ways to create a life that was meaningful to me, even though I didn't have any like agency that I felt. And then at a certain point, it became the thing that kept me there, because I was like, I can just create my bubble, right? Like I can just, it's fine, So, and again, this is what I find really interesting about humans, is that this is what I would say. That's about being present. It's like, like in jiu-jitsu, Matt and I we relate everything to jiu-jitsu. It's like, and he gave me great advice when I started. He was like, cause I was fast and light, I would be like, wee, over here. And he's like, you got to know when to be heavy and when to be slow, and then when to be fast and when to be light. So sometimes I am heavy and people are like, you're so heavy. And it's the only place I'm really happy to hear that. I'm like, like, good, but again, with any of these tools, it's like knowing when to be, mindful and really soak in. This is how I see it, at least. Like, if there's shit going on in your life that you really don't have a lot of control over, or you're not sure what to do yet, but you're just trying to like you sit with it and you like find your peace however you can in there. And then there's time to like burn that shit down and fucking take action and move, that's kind of how I think about it, at least.
I think it's very true. I think it's that we tell the NFL combine guys all the time, the NFL athletes will say, be small until you have to be big.
Yeah.
So for them, and the concept, because they're big guys, and they're like, no, you need to be small for movement in small spaces until you're not.
Right.
And then when you have to tackle somebody, you blow them up.
Yeah.
And the whole thing. And we tell the kids that too. And the kids relate to that really well, and it's just like what you said, when Cortez's men all said, like, they were all in when they knew when Cortez burned the boats, they weren't going back.
Right.
They weren't going back. Like, so that's, I mean, it's, you got to be all in with what you want to accomplish. You really do. And that's like if you're mentally not, and you have 1 foot in the door and 1 foot out of the door. And that's another thing, right? I'll tell you, listen, once this tsunami effect really starts rolling, I have to pull myself out of sports performance, because I can't have 1 foot in the door and be servicing one industry and then service another, because it won't make sense. And by the way, listen, I'm 57. I have 2 knee replacements, and it is a young person's coaching thing. I did it. We were at the summit for Parisi, and that was part of my speech. I did the speech of the 4 candles and talked about the candles of hope, faith, love, and the confidence, love, and faith were fading away, and they blew out. But the hope candle stayed alive, because if you have the hope candle, you can relight all the other candles. And I said that. I said significantly more eloquently there when I was talking, but I told the young coaches, I said, you're that candle. Like, we're the old guard. We need you to do this now. You need to take over, the 20-something coaches, to 20 years from now, then pass that on to other coaches. Because honestly, listen, I mean, I'm older than their parents now, these kids I'm coaching. So I had one little girl, she was like, when were you born, Coach Eric? I said, 1957. She goes, were there cars back then? I was like, of course there were cars back then.
What do you mean? Yeah.
Talking about, so, but it's so funny to hear that and to think, that it's time. And for me, the Tsunami Effect, the timing's perfect now.
Yes.
It's perfect. The book's going to come out. It's going to, and my editor even said, I said to her, I go, you say this to everybody. And she goes, no, I don't. She goes, this might be one of the best projects I've ever worked on. And I thought, wow, made me cry, because I was like, wow, I just want to impact more people, Greta. Yeah. That's what I want to do. And however that impact is, it's this. It's not nebulous. It's, do they believe in themselves? Are they confident? And can they pass that on, whether it be their own children or, like you said, nieces and nephews? Everybody's that. Done your job.
Yeah.
And I mean, then I've done my job.
Right.
That's important.
Well, it's like you said, it's the guard, the candles, the light, all of that. Yeah. Do you have an idea when your book comes out?
Yeah, I think actually, as I've accelerated it, I'm on some of the last chapters. I'll finish chapter 8. That'll be edited, and then we start to get the manuscript together. There's going to be 10 chapters. I think within the next 3 months, it'll be completed. Like, everything will be done. It'll be out, and it's going to accompany. It'll be a kind of accompany my course that I'm going to be putting out, and really kind of honing in to the right audience. And that's the cool thing. I put it out there. It didn't work because I was addressing the wrong audience. And I hired a coach to help me. So I have a coach in Florida, and he's been helping me and he says, hey, the message was wrong. And again, 4 months ago, if you told me that, I've been like, I don't want to do this. It's not going to work. It's not going to, not now. I'm just like, all right, retool it. We got to figure out who to go after now.
Right.
It just opens up. So yeah, I think the course is happening shortly, but then the book will come, and I think it'll be a game changer.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I mean, just you talking, I mean, I'm like just more excited about the day in general now. You are the sunshine for me today. Yeah. There's clouds, but you're being the sunshine. Yeah. So
I love it.
No, I love it so much. It makes me so happy. Like, again, meeting other people who have a very like mind, and are out there in the world lifting other people up, and I mean, you were always that too. When you came to train us, you always had the best energy. So definitely the thermostat, right? You said,
The thermostat.
I like that.
But
Yeah.
Greta, I want to say this, like, and there's someone's car alarm going off.
That's
That you were that as well, and even at a young age, like you, when I would come in any place I go into, you know a coach, so a coach knows a coach,
Mhm.
and you were a coach, so the intensity. Plus, you were very difficult to fight, so that was really hard. You were very difficult to fight, but I always saw that in you. There was a uniqueness about the way that you presented things, and that's a long time ago. So it was always there, Greta. Like, it was always there, and you had it, and you can see that it's expanded and grown now. You know, yeah, and that's the wonderful thing. And I'm so, like, I got to tell you, like, I'm so thrilled that you're in a relationship that respects that cultivates that and nurtures it. That's an important thing from this old coach and your friend to see that.
Thank you. I appreciate that so much. I mean, yeah, I loved teaching at a younger age. It was funny to be so much younger than everybody and then teach people who are older than me. But I, so thankful to Ernie. He asked me to warm up class one day, and I was like, I don't think I can say anything in front of anybody. But I started warming people up, and a voice came out of me that I didn't know I had. I was like, everybody, and I teach so differently now. I'm very, like, even just Krav was so explosive and aggressive and all of that. And it's so funny. We have some girls that I train right now who I just adore so much, because they are like, I was very sick by the time I was 25. So they're like around 25, but they have that spirit. They are just like all go. And I love them so much. I recognize, I'm like, I know that, like, I have it. I just do it differently now. And also it comes with experience. I think, especially in jiu-jitsu, the higher you get up in the belt, you kind of manage your energy a little differently. You don't like you were saying when you were talking about rolling with the Gracie guys, like your heart rate, you're like, what am I doing? Meanwhile, they're just chilling. So what's fun about jiu-jitsu in that sense is, you can, to an extent, you can manage your movement and your energy and just have it dialed in a little bit differently. So it's fun, and I love, like, our gym is just incredible. They are, it's a party. Every time you go in there, you've got the best coaches, just the best energy. Like, they're just wonderful. It's wonderful. Yeah. So it's been, last year I started teaching the women's class, and I had always taught co-ed too. So it was like different in that sense, just to do like women's class, but it's been, I think that not all women, like, I came out of the womb wanting to fight. I was like, let's go.
No doubt about that.
But I found so many women have that, if not all have that in there. It's sort of how to show them it's there, So for me, especially if I'm rolling before girls, like, most of the girls that I have in my class, I think, saw me rolling first and were like, oh, I want to do that because I'm having fun. Like, I'm laughing. I'm like just being silly. Like, I always say I'm here for a silly goose time. Like, I did all my serious Krav training, and it's in there and it's in my head, like, if I get stuck somewhere, I'm like, this is why I know X, Y, or Z. Yeah. I'm like, I know what I need to do here. But yeah, like, helping make it a little bit more relatable, where it's not like everybody has to be a competitive athlete. They don't have to do it for that. There's many reasons to pursue something of the physical nature, especially like martial arts and anything that's going to push you to your edges. There's so many things that come with that, and it's the thing that I really just do just because I love it. I just love it. It's, and it relates to literally everything else. I feel like. Yeah, it does. Yeah, it really does. So if people want to do your course, how do they go about it?
Easiest way to contact me is Instagram is going to be the easiest way, or Facebook right now. LinkedIn's it's a work in progress for me, because some of the client base that I want, the future customers, would come from LinkedIn a lot of times. But I mean, it's on Instagram, it's Coach Eric Mitchell. I'll
put everything in the
and then the Facebook's just Eric Mitchell. And I'll get some more information to you. The website's being developed right now. It's still not up yet, but if they, have a conversation. Listen, I'm very open and honest. People want to email me, and that's easy. That's coacherickmitchell@gmail.com. Anybody from your show ever wants to contact me about anything. I one of the things I pride myself on is once I'm in a family, I'm in that family. So whatever Parisi certifications I do, I have coaches still calling me from 20 years ago who are like, oh, I'm doing this now, and can you help me with this? And I have no problem helping anybody out that needs help. And I get back to people fairly quickly. So social media, that's a big piece now for me. I'll also, for everybody, I'll share eventually when the website goes up, which will be the Tsunami Effect coaching. And then
are you going to YouTube?
Yes, I just started. I was
that. Like,
and I'm going to develop a podcast too. So I'm developing a podcast as well for the Tsunami Effect. But yes, YouTube, that's starting. And by the way, for anybody that hears this, you need a coach, hire a coach. I have a CEO who said to me, there's two people that a high-powered CEO should always have on speed dial. One is their therapist, and two is their life coach. Those are the two people they need. And he's right. He's absolutely right. And that's how people can contact me, and they want to keep the conversation going. I post a lot of videos on Instagram, and that's going to
I love your videos. Yeah.
I appreciate that. We'll have to collaborate.
Yes, I would love to. I would love to. Yeah. I can't wait till you come out here.
Yeah, and I'll let you know when that'll come about, and we'll definitely have to all get together.
Oh yeah. Well, thank you so much. Is there anything else? Is there anything you would want to share that we haven't covered that is on your heart?
No, I think we've covered a lot.
We did cover
good stuff, Greta.
I know this is good. This is good stuff.
Yeah, this is really fun. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, thank you for being on. Thank you so much for sharing all of this. Sharing your sunshine. That's hard to say. Sharing your sunshine.
It's well said.
Thank you.
Excellent, Greta.